Now, the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has raised concerns about the growing number of young Ukrainians arriving here in Germany. In a phone call with the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky, Merz urged the Ukrainian leadership to take action. Arrivals of fighting-age Ukrainian men have increased sharply since the Kyiv government allowed them to travel freely. Here's more from the German Chancellor.
In a lengthy phone conversation, I asked the Ukrainian president to ensure that young men in particular from Ukraine do not come to Germany in large numbers, or rather in growing numbers, but that they perform their duty in their homeland. They're needed there, and here in Germany the payments for these refugees will be such that the incentives to work will be greater than the incentive to remain in the refugee protection system.
All right, let's take a closer look at what the German Chancellor is talking about here. Now, since Ukraine changed its immigration rules in August, the number of young Ukrainian men arriving in Germany has surged dramatically. The AFP news agency, citing the German Interior Ministry, is reporting that only 19 Ukrainians aged 18 to 22 arrived back in August, that's per week. By September, that number had jumped to 1,000, and in October it soared to 1,400 and more. Now, before the regulation change, all men of military age were required to stay in Ukraine. Now, many of them have helped swell the 1.2 million Ukrainian refugees living here in Germany. We're going to take a look now at two young Ukrainian men who took advantage of those relaxed exit restrictions and moved to Berlin.
20-year-old Maxim from Kiev has never left Ukraine, until now. Since August, Ukrainian men aged 18 to 22 have been allowed to leave the country despite martial law. And Maxim was among the first to seize the chance.
You know, all my friends who stayed in Ukraine were just happy for me. I haven't heard any hate comments from military personnel, because I have more than one friend who is currently serving in the armed forces of Ukraine. I also have acquaintances who serve there, and I haven't heard anything like, you're doing a bad thing, you're abandoning your country needs you have to fight.
In Berlin, he's applied for temporary protection, moved into a refugee shelter, and now hopes to learn German and find work. He says he's open to whatever opportunities life here might bring.
My joy knew no bounds, because I realized that this is my ticket to the future.
Back home, he had been working as a career after being expelled from university. His father died years ago. Only his mother, who works as a cleaner, remains in Ukraine.
I want to study here, ideally something practical, like electrical engineering or another technical trade that can improve people's lives and contribute to this country.
While Maxim is just starting his new life in Germany, 18-year-old Mikita from Dnipro has already settled in. He's been living in Berlin for 2 years. Mikita welcomed the new travel rules that allow young men to temporarily travel and return to Ukraine. But he's not planning a trip anytime soon, fearing he might not be allowed back.
What if I go home to Dnipro and when I arrive they suddenly change the law again and I won't be able to return to Germany, even if I'm a student here with a job? That's what really worries me.
Germany has now taken in around 1.26 million Ukrainians, over 500,000 of them men. German officials say the rise in arrivals is partly linked to this change in the law. Previously, Ukrainian men of draft age were generally prohibited from leaving the country, so the change in this rule became a rare legal option for young men. Critics say that Ukraine cannot afford to lose its younger generation, especially in the context of mobilization. And the young men we met in Germany don't plan to return, at least for now.
We don't know what tomorrow or the day after tomorrow will bring. I have friends and my loved ones here. Everyone is here. I want to stay in Europe for now. I want to study and work in Germany, in Berlin.
Залишатися і навчатися і працювати в Німеччині, в Берліні.
I believe there will be no wave of migration, but people like me will leave. But if they don't succeed, they will most likely return.
But as more young Ukrainian men leave, the question remains, how long can Ukraine afford to let them go?
Let's get more on this from DW's chief political correspondent, Nina Haase. So, Nina, first of all, tell us more about what Chancellor Merz has been saying and why he's saying this now.
Well, he made those comments that you just played excerpts of, and he also said that in this lengthy conversation that he had with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, they discussed other issues, like, for example, the energy scandal in the Ukrainian government. And Zelensky is coming to Central Europe next week. So, of course, this was also a preparatory call to sort of discuss other issues in terms of weapons deliveries, etc. But one of the key issues in that lengthy conversation with Zelensky, said Merz, was, of course, the issue of the rising number of Ukrainian men coming to Germany. You just showed these figures, and you have to keep in mind that out of all Ukrainian refugees in the European Union, Germany is hosting roughly 1/3 of people. So that is a very big group. And if that trend continues, said Merz, then he's going to have to ask the Ukrainian president to act and stop that trend. Now, this comment comes, of course, in a situation where the German government is under pressure. We can see the polls where the far-right AfD party are definitely focusing on the issue of migration, saying that there are too many people here receiving too many benefit payments, etc. So this is something where the German government under Friedrich Merz, which is a conservative-led one, has promised change and has promised a so-called migration turnaround. So we have seen tougher language from Friedrich Merz, not just when it comes to Ukrainian men, also when it comes to Syrian men, who are the second largest group of refugees in Germany. But we're also looking at some specific proposals to essentially make Germany a less appealing, less attractive destination for refugees from around the world, really.
I just want to pick up on the mention that you made of benefits payments. I mean, we know that even before Ukraine relaxed the exit rules for young men, Ukrainians did represent one of the largest groups of refugees here in Germany. But Ukrainians have a special status. They enjoy better financial support than other refugees. So just going back to what you said, is this what is pushing Merz here?
That is part of it, yes. This is definitely something where Ukrainian refugees constitute a different group from all the other refugees that are in Germany. So Ukrainian refugees are treated essentially like German citizens when it comes to welfare payments. So a poor German person will receive what is called citizens' allowance, Bürgergeld, and Ukrainian refugees can receive the same payments. Now, Friedrich Merz is suggesting and is also talking to the ministries that have to work on a draft bill on that about changing those welfare rules so that in future Ukrainian refugees will be treated just like any other group of refugees. And that would then, of course, lower the amount of benefits that they would get from the state for being here. And Friedrich Merz wants to get them into jobs, he said. He says it has to be more attractive to find a job in Germany and to get on that integration path rather than relying on the welfare system. And this draft law is currently being worked on. The cabinet is expected to approve it next week already. And so the new rules will come into effect fairly soon, and they will apply to anyone arriving from Ukraine who arrived from Ukraine essentially from the 1st of April this year. So that is going to affect those Ukrainian men who fled to Germany in the months between August and October as well.
Nina, thank you so much for bringing us up to date. That's DW's chief political correspondent, Nina Haase.